I did get the option of doing overheads and making this much more formal, but I decided I'd much rather have it as a conversation, with me guiding a conversation rather than me giving lots of information and you feeling like, oh, I must remember that. I mean, if that happens, that's fine, but I'd really rather hear whether what I have to say resonates with you, or certainly sharing our experience of, you know, your own self-care, but also caring for carers. So just getting an idea, how many people are in that role of professionally or volunteer caring for other people?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah, you probably all.
I mean, almost everybody, I suspect, at one level or another. We've all got children and bloody grandchildren and teachers and parents who
have been affected, or just
in the community.
Have been affected by the bushfire?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Anybody in a professional role, as in paid role? 1, 2. Okay. All right. Okay. So, or in a voluntary role where you've got a peak organisation, like Red Cross or something like that, where. So we're 2, probably 5 people who are kind of accountable to another organisation in some way. Right. Okay. And the others?
Well, yeah, paid to run a business.
Okay. And that business?
North East Water.
Okay. And anyone else in a professional capacity where you're like a peak organisation like that?
Council, which was council, so
sure.
relief and recovery.
Yeah, okay.
The
So,
Department of Health and Human Services.
sure. So quite a divergent range of experiences and levels of responsibility, and I absolutely hear the first response was, well, I'm a carer, I'm a family member, I'm a neighbour, you know. None of us get away scot-free from caring. And if you do have a break, it'll be somebody else that we need to pay attention to, or want to pay attention to. So, in front of you, I thought I'd just go through these, each of those areas, but I'm not absolutely married to finishing the 4 of them, certainly trusting your gut. I don't know whether we need to spend a lot of time on that. So I thought I'd just go through, and I really invite you to ask questions or talk about your own experience. And we've got such limited time, so, but at the same time I think we can really learn from each other or get a sense of the complexity of what it is, certainly in crisis recovery, what it actually means to support other people and support yourself. So
the thing that really left out of nature was the knowing enough, because it's some stuff I learned quite a few years ago with Granddad. You don't have to be a perfect mother or a father or a perfect anything. Perfect pilot's important.
sure.
But for most things, enough, a good enough anything is not just the yes, I like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could start. Would you want to start with that one? Why don't we start with that one? I think that's on page 6. And I think I covered it when I said, what do we realistically need to know about crisis response and crisis recovery to provide, and it's again a buzzword, psychological safety and containment for carers. And an unhelpful belief I come across, certainly when people come in, no longer with Lifeline, but came in as a volunteer, and would often say, you know, I need to know so much about family violence and loneliness and sexual abuse of children, and I'd go, why? do you know anything about being a human? And they, oh yeah, I know a lot about being human, but I need to know all of this. And it took me some time to say to people, let's start with being human and knowing about loss and grief and pain, you know, compassion. And then if you feel like you need to know more, I'm your girl. But if you can start with that on the phone, then your training will help you get there. So that whole notion that, you know, the crisis recovery area is absolutely bombarded with jargon like recovery phases, counselling skills, compassion fatigue, burnout, vicarious trauma, debriefing, and people will often feel like they're inadequate. They should feel like I should know what that's about, certainly if I'm going to care for other people. A more helpful belief, and I take your point, is, you know, I know enough to do the job. I know enough to care, and if I don't know enough, I can ask. So
my thought would be, you actually learn by listening.
Sure.
You learn about it in your listening.
Yeah, indeed. So, and often in crisis recovery, and I think a couple of the other speakers said, you know, this will last weeks, months, years, and often a conversation you can have with somebody today and think, you know, I think they're travelling well. You might have a similar conversation a week later or a month later or 6 months later and realise they're actually not travelling well at all. And so we can't really get married to this notion of this linear way that being good or coping this week may not necessarily lead to coping next week. And if we normalise that, when we don't, in my business, we don't call it, we call it ambulance chasing, trying to find a problem that probably isn't there. It's just part of the fabric of recovery. So, you know, accepting the reality and limitations of your role. Fast-moving, chaotic environments are challenging to read. And sometimes people will say, why aren't I coping as well as so-and-so? You know, or they're out there and they're around and they're doing lots of things. I don't feel like being helpful at all. And it's accepting that that's what's going on for you and you're doing the best you can on the day. There's always somebody who'll be doing it differently to you.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Sorry. One way the not knowing enough is actually about empathy, because the person you're talking to is feeling lost, lonely and helpless and not knowing what to do. So when you catch that feeling, you're actually listening.
Sure.
And it's actually a sign of being useful.
Other people feel like that? Have that experience? Yeah.
My name's Dennis. I was in a fire 4 years ago and lost everything but the house. And one of the things as part of why I'm interested in this group is that I remember looking down the driveway one day and there were 7 vehicles coming up towards my house, including, you know, CFA 12, the Christmas chicken, you know. So there's all these people coming at where I needed to be thinking of bracing myself for people who are either wanting to care, are caring or not. And I remember thinking, for some of them it was actually a very difficult thing to relate.
Sure.
So I started to feel like I needed to help them start the conversation in order to make it all go.
Yep.
And that was with me in a not a professional role, but in like a person who got burnt out role. So it was an interesting dynamic, and I'm really keen to. That's what I could contribute just to that point made then, but keen to sort of get a bit of a feel for how do you look after the people who are wanting to do the right thing, but maybe they haven't been worded up to do it in a way that's helpful.
Yeah, and you have to kind of play triage.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Other people relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember my wife saying in 2009 when the Red Cross knocked on the door, I said, what do you need? And she said, everything.
Yeah.
It's such a silly question, but it's such an obvious question that it's meant from the heart. But is completely, utterly unhelpful.
Yeah.
And we feed that back.
And I think you've both touched on probably the essence of what I'm saying here, is that you can model that to other people, which is, I have no idea, and when I do, I'll let you know. But today, right at this moment, I just need you to shush and just capture where we are in time. So, you know, anyone watching that and going, well, I reckon I can do that too. It's slowing people down. And as you say, shut up and listen. And often we have to direct people and be quite directive with them. I know you care, but right at the moment, I don't want to do that. Or I don't know what I need today. And that takes quite a lot of insight, but it's what I model to people all the time, which is it's actually a gift to say, I don't know what I don't need. And you just maybe need to shut up and listen for a while, and it'll emerge. But I can't do this cold. I have to kind of warm up to it.